My favorite TV shows, man, the Sports Center, ESPN News, Partner Interruption, Around the Horn, quite frankly, Outside the Lines, Baseball Tonight. You know what I mean? I watch sports, dog. That's what I'm trying to say. I watch sports, man. That's what I'm into. Sports. Every sport. Hockey, golf, basketball, football, of course. Baseball. You know what I mean? I got a favorite team, a favorite player in every single sport. I'm not going to answer those questions. Let's go.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this blessed day. I hope everyone's listening in and tuning in today and enjoying your day so far. You are listening to Q&A on W.C.C.U. Radio, Coastal Carolina University's student radio station. I am your host, the one and only Addison J. Taylor, and I'm here to give you the topics, folks, like we usually do on Q&A. Hope you're enjoying the beautiful day that we're having outside. The sun is out, and I can't complain. Some big stories going on today, folks. And just to let you know, we also have the greatest co-host in the history of sports radio, Mr. Chase McFadden, aka Lord Helix, will be in the building today. I know you've been waiting on it, folks. He's here. Just a few minutes late. We had some crazy traffic on 501. I think 3 accidents, if I'm not mistaken. Chase will be here shortly to give you, a further rundown of the topics today. We're covering a lot of different things today, folks. I know you've been, having, your own personal dealings with the sports and the athletics going on today. We got Masters play, NBA. NBA's coming up. Hold on one second, folks. All right, we're good to go. Chase just walked in the building. Mr. McFadden, how you doing today?
I'm good today. How are you, Addison?
Doing well, doing well, doing well. Yeah, we got a couple of topics for you here today, folks. Like I said, Masters play, a little MLB recap. Me and Chase have we've been going pretty strong this past week, folks, trying to give you the best and the most prominent stories going on in the sporting world today. Also, Mike and Mike, Greenberg and Golick will be here on Monday for their Masters recap. So if you're down in the Myrtle Beach area, you have a little free time, head out to Barefoot Landing, if I'm not mistaken, Chase. I got that correct?
They'll be playing the tournament will be over at Barefoot.
Mm-hmm.
Mike and Mike will be at the House of Blues.
House of Blues, okay. Check that out, folks. If you're a big fan, as we are, go check them out if you have any free time on Monday. But like I said, we'll start. I honestly, what I'm about to say will be the first time I think I've ever said this, Chase. For the listeners out there, I'm a little under the weather. The pollen is really taking its toll on me. So for the first time, Chase, I'm going to need you to do majority of the talking. I don't think I've ever said that.
Yeah, and I'm pretty winded. I just sprinted across campus, so between the two of us,
No, I appreciate
we'll
it, man.
find some air.
Before we get to the topics, man, I just really want to touch on a few things that I've seen thus far. First of all, I want to say, and this is a little bit touching here, but I want to say rest in peace to Miss Lauren Hill. She died from brain cancer today, and she was a college basketball player. And they actually I don't know if you saw the segment on ESPN, but they actually gave her the opportunity to play in a game this year. She was, I think, 19 years old. Yep. So just want to, give a shout out to her family. Rest in peace. And, I hope the family, continues to, be in a positive space. And, everybody just send out a prayer for Miss Lauren Hill. Chase, Troy Polamalu retired. How do you feel about that? I know like I said, folks, we got some main topics for you. I just want to touch on a few little subtle nuances before we start to talk about the big deal. What do you think about that, Chase? Is he still one of the greatest safeties of all time? Did he have a few bad years? Because I think he was on track to be that safety, Chase, but the last maybe 3, 4, 5 years, he didn't really give it.
Yeah, he's been a little bit of a. He's been on the field, but he hasn't played to the level that we're used to Troy Polamalu playing the last couple years. Still probably above average at the safety position.
Yeah.
I think the Steelers are trying to move forward. They're trying to cut some of the slack. They started this last year.
Right.
And they kind of really forced his hand, which is unfortunate. They were like, you can retire as a Steeler or we're going to release you.
Right.
Which you don't know. They tried this last year with Harrison. So we said, all right, I retire, I quit. And then 3 weeks in, there's an injury. And they're like, Harrison, can you please come back? We need you. So I can definitely see them doing that again with Polamalu. If safety gets hurt, they might call him up and be like, hey, it's week 3. You want to come back? But yeah, it's unfortunate. This seems to happen a lot. The Steelers have this like hometown, we love our players kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, atmosphere.
Right.
And they kind of want people to come in, start your career as a Steeler, stay as a Steeler, retire as a Steeler.
Yeah.
So they kind of force your hand when you're done. They're like, all right, it's time for you to go. We're thinking about releasing you, but if you want some dignity, you can retire as a Steeler.
Right. I mean, and he had the 12-year stint. He is one of the best and most recognizable players of his generation. I mean, he's 33. So it's not uncommon. And I don't think we're seeing anything crazy here. I think people are just making a big deal out of it because
just the name.
He still goes down with the Ed Reeds. I'm not saying he's better than Ed Reed, but you remember when he was jumping over the line of scrimmage and sacking. I mean, he had his time. So I just really wanted to touch on that really quickly. Chase, wherever you like to start, man, I'm rolling with you today. You got the number one role. Do your thing, man. Where do you want to start?
Want to talk about the Braves? I want to talk about the Braves.
I talked about that on Wednesday, and I was quite ecstatic because when I saw that we beat the Marlins 12-2, I was like, oh, we are really putting up runs.
Yeah.
And you can't beat that. Go ahead, man. Do your thing.
Well, I think the Royals kind of set the foundation last year.
Yeah.
Of generate runs, play really good defense, have a deep bullpen, have a good starting rotation.
Mm-hmm.
This foundation has kind of been starting to lay out in baseball the last decade or so. We had the PEDs, the steroids, all of the performance-enhancing drugs come out.
Right.
And baseball's kind of squished that. So what you've seen is the pitchers start to dominate, and hitting and runs have dramatically started to decrease and decrease and decrease year by year. The Braves got rid of Frank Wren. Frank Wren got fired. Frank Wren, I don't know if you know, he's the GM. He brought in Dan Ugla, Justin Upton, B.J. Upton.
Mm-hmm.
They found Gaddis. He really kind of brought in this mentality of we're going to hit a lot of home runs, and I think he had the mentality of what a lineup kind of should look like. Quick guy up front, kind of a decent average hitter number 2, power right-handed bat, power left-handed bat, power right-handed bat, power left-handed. He kind of built a lineup instead of building a team.
Right. Yeah, and you hit that right on the head.
I think the Braves foundation as a fan base really liked that. But what it equated to essentially was a lot of solo home runs.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember when Justin Upton, his first year, he started out, he hit like 12 home runs in like a week and a half or something. He hit like 12 home runs in the first month. 11 of them were solo home runs.
Right.
It doesn't really benefit your team if everyone's hitting solo home runs and no one can get on base. You got B.J. Upton batted under 200 last year. Dan Ugla batted under 200 last year. The team average was like 232.
Mm-hmm.
It's abysmal. Despite pitching becoming more prominent, the Braves' average is really just plummeted. So they essentially just overhauled this whole team. They got rid of the slack. I know a lot of people, I was kind of upset with him getting rid of Hayward, but he hasn't really come to fruition. The prime age in baseball is 27. It's kind of where guys peak, and he's still only 26. And the Cardinals will probably bring out the best in him.
Right.
But it was a huge contract. We got rid of all the huge contracts, the Uptons. We lost Kimbrel last week.
Well, like you said before, Chase, and we talked about this before, they weren't performing.
Yeah, exactly.
They weren't performing, and a lot of, I've been reading a lot and looking up, and a lot of people are, been saying and talking a lot about Freddie Freeman, and what he could supposedly do for the team and things like that. But, I think the guys that they have now collectively, and you touched on this, they just want to win. I think some of the players that you talked about, even Jay Howard, the Upton twins, I think they were like not stat guys, but they were more concerned about just getting on base and really not doing anything with it. When I was watching a lot of the Braves games last year, it was seeming like we would put the runs up, but we weren't a team that was made to come back. Like if we got down 4-2, you might as well just call it a game. But right now, we're looking at 3-0. It's very early, but New York's 2-1, Washington's 1-2. Miami's 0-3. Do you see more coming from? Who do you really see kind of like fluctuating in that division, kind of keeping up with us as far as the Braves go?
Braves probably not going to be undefeated. 162 would be nice.
Right.
We're on pace. Braves probably won't be first. But I think the overwhelming thing this offseason was people thought the Braves were going to be horrible.
Right.
And we were really setting the foundation for prospects and playing a little more small ball, which is what the game is nowadays.
Right.
You have a team with 40 home run guys. It doesn't really benefit you as much as it did 10 years ago.
That's true.
It's all about getting on base, producing runs at an effective and consistent rate. The Braves, I think third is a good year for us. If we can finish 500, 80-80, watch these young guys develop, watch this new pitching staff, which isn't bad.
Right.
The pitching staff's pretty decent. Our 4 and 5 guys we'll see what Eric Stoltz can do tonight. He's a left-handed guy. He tries to get a lot of ground balls. He doesn't strike a lot of guys out. But if we can play defense and do that, the Braves will be fine. The Nationals will probably finish in first. I think the Mets can keep pace with them.
I guess that
Phillies
just
and the
depends on what
Marlins will
Harvey
probably
does,
be in the
too.
bottom of the barrel.
Mm-hmm.
The Phillies, what the Braves did that I really liked was when Frank Wren left, Andy Hart came in, and he's really done a great job of like just transforming this within one off season.
Right.
I think a lot of people don't give him credit. A lot of people look at what the Padres did, adding all these names, but the Braves did a good job of getting rid of all these names, bringing in a lot of good prospects. We have like 6 guys in the top 100 prospects.
I saw
That's
that.
a lot.
I think we're being smarter with our money too, Chase. That was
Yeah.
a big thing that you had me look into was, you know, Atlanta's not a small market, but people aren't exactly, crawling and screaming to go play there. So at the same time, I think we're doing some better things this year. I've been getting a lot of questions. What do you feel about Julio Teheran at pitcher? What do you think he can? I mean, what do you expect from him? I've been getting and seeing a lot of questions about not his durability, but can he keep the success throughout the entire season? Especially him only being 24 years old. He's young. 4 years experience. What do you think about him?
Julio's awesome. Julio's one of our prime prospects.
Right.
I'm not sure if I'm correct on this, but I'm pretty sure Julio played for the Pelicans for a little bit. I might be incorrect on that. But Julio's a guy that the Braves have had for several years. They've brought him up.
You're right about that.
They've had him in the farm system. We actually, because we had such a good pitching staff, we didn't have to bring him up a couple years ago when we probably could have.
Right.
A lot of staffs bring up their young guys. There's a guy named Tyjon Walker playing for the Mariners right now. He's probably not quite ready. I think he's 24 too. Julio's fine. Julio's going to be great. Despite any maybe injury down the road, or it would be like a Tommy John or something.
Yeah.
Julio has the potential to be like the ace of the staff for the next at least 5 years.
I guess I asked you that because I'd like to see that. I think a lot of people are saying are not making negative comments about him, but they want, they always want to compare him to the Smoltz and the Maddocks.
Yeah.
You can't do that. You just can't do that. And being a Braves fan, those are two of the greats to me. But I see what you're saying, where you have to have a contrast between, I guess, the older style of the Braves with new players. You have to be able to correlate and be cohesive because, really with New York, I guess that really just depends on, really what Harvey does. But at the same time, he's really coming back since his Tommy John surgery. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think
Harvey looked great the other night.
right. So we have to see. It's still early, and I want everybody to understand that we understand that it's still early. But when it comes to certain teams, an early start is what we need. We need a good start so we can continue the longevity throughout the season. I want to touch on this really quickly, Chase, because I've been getting a lot of backlash about this. A-Rod hit his 655th home run last night. The Yankees are my favorite AL team. I did admit that on the airwaves. Do you think this is good for baseball, Chase? Bad for baseball? Is it even in that conversation? Should it even be a question whether it's good or bad? Do you not care? Do you think it's not really that important? What do you feel about that?
I don't really care about A-Rod. Let me rephrase that. Not that I really care about A-Rod. I don't care about the hype around A-Rod. The PED stuff it's still vaguely around the Ryan Browns, the A-Rods. I think A-Rod got a suspension. The age is kind of becoming a factor now, but he's still, what is A-Rod, 34, 35? 35. He's still fine. There are players that have shown that they can play well into their 40s,
right?
Especially late 30s, especially hitters, not so much pitchers, but definitely hitters. And if A-Rod's going to be DHing for the majority of the year, I don't think 25 to 30 home runs is unrealistic with a 260, 270 average. He can be productive. It's not like A-Rod fell off the face of the planet. Even when all this stuff has been going on for 2 or 3 years, when he's played, he's still been relatively productive.
Right.
And that's been in non-consistent spurts. I think A-Rod has the potential to be a fine player. I think we're going to be talking about the PEDs and is he too old and can he play? And then the New York media stuff's going to perpetuate this stuff all season long. Chase Headley's an awesome third baseman. They'll probably rotate a little bit. Chase can move into the outfield someone they need him to. A-Rod can still play third. I think defensively is where I'd be a little worried about him.
Yeah, I think he is a defensive liability, yes.
But offensively, you're going to stick him at DH for 120 games. That's right where he needs to be, especially hitting against lefties. He can still hit against righties. This is a guy who was 5 years ago, other than postseason performance questions, was literally him and maybe Pujols. These were the face of baseball. This was the best player in baseball.
Right.
I don't think his talent has fallen off that much in 2 or 3 years just because of the lack of PED use.
Well, and people talk about his weight and they talk about different things, but like you said, he's getting older. So these are things that you really can't get rid of. I feel like the Yankees as an organization, they say what they want about Alex Rodriguez, but they like the attention. They because especially with DJ gone, it's they're going to need something, some kind of a spark to keep the attention on New York.
Yeah.
So I think as far as with the bonus and I think he has to hit 60 home runs to get the
It's probably not gonna get the bonus.
yeah, to get the bonus. But at the same time, like you said, he's still one of the best hitters of all time. I think he's 5 behind Willie Mays or something like that
Yeah,
with
he's up
655. So we'll see. But I guess you touched on that PED issue, and I been getting a lot of questions about that lately. I guess with the season starting, and do you feel like I guess these specific players? I don't want to. We don't have to touch on this long. I just really want to ask you this. The A-Rods and the Bonds is. Do you think those guys will ever make it to the Hall, or do you think that this PED thing is just going to be such a dark cloud for Major League Baseball until we get I guess the new wave, the Mike Trouts, the Harpers, until we get a whole new wave of players in? Do you think that PED is just going to be an issue that kind of clouds the game? Do you feel like that's something that you see kind of going away or kind of fading out here in the next few years?
I think that McGuire, Sosa, Bonds, Canseco, all these guys, I think this cloud's going to hover over them in this era where they have a chance to be in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
I don't think until maybe our generation or slightly a generation above us becomes the writers, the voters,
Right.
that they'll understand that this was just kind of an era of baseball, and these guys' numbers in comparison to other people's numbers were extraordinary. A lot of people hold baseball as this whole pastime, so I think these numbers and these actions, a lot of integrity is involved in the voting process.
Right.
My only concern would be once my generation becomes the voters on baseball, do we really want to go back another 20 years and we'll be having Hall of Fame induction ceremonies with a 75-year-old McGuire and Sosa, and these guys will be older.
Right.
They'll be in their 60s, 70s by the time a generation realizes that this is kind of part of the game. So I don't think they'll ever make it into the Hall. I think if they do, there'll be these asterisks and these whispers and the mumbles under the breath.
And when you see, the voting occur, you always see a few votes for them. You do always see, but those people never disclose themselves.
Yeah,
You never know who placed the votes for them. So I definitely see what you're saying on that. I feel you. I don't think it's going to be something that goes away into the further generations. Really start to have control over every integral part of the voting process. So yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. What you got next on board, Chase? What are you thinking?
I'm looking at the Masters leaderboard just briefly on my phone. I've been keeping track of it all day.
What do you think about what Spieth is doing?
Spieth, they were talking yesterday. After the round was over, I was watching ESPN, and they were saying how it's so hard to shoot well 2 days of the Masters. It's so hard to do that well 2 days in a row.
Right.
So I went back and I looked at the leaderboards for the last decade. Nobody has shot around below 68 and won, and below 68 in the first round and won in the last decade. There's some guys that have shot 66, 65. I couldn't find a day where somebody shot 8 under in the last decade. So then I started looking at the margins of victory. Could he run away with it? Did people run away with it at the Masters? And I had to go all the way back to, I believe it was 2001.
Mm-hmm.
Tiger Woods won by 12 strokes.
Mm.
That's when he was 21. He came out, he shot 18 under, and second
fresh.
was 6 under, and it was over.
He was fresh.
So I woke up today with the impression that maybe he'll play even today. Maybe shoot 1 over, 1 or 2 under. He's not going to run away with it. I'm looking right now. Do
you see the gap closing? Do you see Jason Day, Charlie Hoffman, Justin Rose,
I don't see
Ernie
these guys
Els? Do you see
shooting,
any of those guys? Bill Hayes, Webb Simpson. Do you see any of those guys really jumping up and just making a statement? Because right now they're Jason Day's 5 back. Spieth is -11 right now. Jason Day's -6. Hoffman's -6 as well. I think last time I looked, I think Tiger was tied for 41st or something like that.
I haven't even traveled that far down the board.
Yeah, so Vijay Singh is tied for 63rd. I see Tiger. Yeah, he's 40. Oh, actually, excuse me, he's tied for 35th. along with Tom Watson.
Yeah, I think Day played a really good day yesterday. So did Rose. They both shot 500. I believe.
I really like Jason Day's game.
Unless one of those two, I don't see Hoffman shooting 500 again, even though he's already 1 under through 4 today. And Hoffman's not a bad player. That's not a knock against Hoffman. Day and Rose are on another level, and I think Spieth is on another level above them. Really right now the golf has been McIlroy and Spieth. Spieth's been kind of coming up pretty fast. I don't know, McIlroy. This is what he needs to get the Grand Slams, the Masters.
Mm-hmm.
But the Masters plays kind of fast, and McIlroy typically doesn't play well with fast.
Right.
So I don't know if he'll ever get to the green jacket. That's a different discussion. I kind of woke up today not expecting Spieth to run away with it, and it looks like he might run away with it.
Well, and how did you feel about, I guess, his score? I mean, of course, when it ranks. I actually just got something on my screen that said Hoffman just jumped to number 2. He's 2 under now. Do you think Spieth's score of 64? Where does that rank amongst first rounds that you've seen at the Masters, Chase? I mean, is that
it's up there?
Yeah.
Yeah. People don't come out and shoot like that on the first day of the Masters. Most guys are still kind of like feeling it out. Spieth just finished 9 at par. Hoffman did jump into second, 7 under. Yeah, most guys are feeling out day one. That's an impressive day. I think the average winning score around the Masters is typically about 10 under. You want to get a 10 under, and that weather and conditions and all this varies year to year, temperature.
Do you think that that's a factor right now? Because right now I'm seeing it's 80 degrees, winds about 14 miles per hour, 45% humidity.
Yeah, this has been a typical Masters weekend. This is, I think, what you look for. You look for 75 to 80 degrees,
right. Pretty
good wind. Greens are playing relatively fast. I think they actually weren't playing as fast as they thought they were going to be yesterday, and people were having a tough time reading them. But the course is playing pretty fast, from what I saw. So an average good day is 5-6 under. I think anything beyond that's pretty extraordinary. The fact that Spieth came out and shot 8 under and he's 3 under through the first 9 today. If he shoots 5 or 6 under again today, you just got to show up Saturday and Sunday.
So it's really his for the taking if he can do what he can do today.
I think right now, unless Hoffman and Day and Rose can shoot 5 under again, which Hoffman and Day are already making pretty good pace. Rose doesn't tee off again for another half hour. If those guys can all play, if we can watch these guys shoot 68s all weekend, it'll be fun come Sunday when these guys are all like 18 under, 14 to 18 under playing for it. That'd be a really weird kind of phenomenon for the Masters because we don't get that a lot. It's typically 8 to 9 is your winner.
Are you surprised to see how well Hoffman and Day are doing? Because I'm not, Chase, but at the same time, if you look, the more prominent guys, I guess, that we're used to are down the board. Dustin Johnson's tied for 12th with Phil Mickelson as well. Keegan Bradley's tied for 17th. Bubba Watson's tied for 17th. Rory McIlroy's tied for 17th. Do you think those guys, do you think it was that Spieth played so well, or that these guys aren't really, they just didn't have it the first round?
I think everyone played well. I think Spieth just played above and beyond what anyone's expecting on day one. Because I was watching all day and I was like, look at all these guys that are in contention. Sergio shot, 4 under.
Mm-hmm.
Sergio shot 4 under. Mickelson was 2 under. Dustin Johnson was 2 under. Keegan Bradley was 1 under. You still had Bubba Watson. I'm looking at names: Adam Scott, Kuchar, Woods, Westwood, Poulter, Furyk. All these guys were even, +1, 1 under. That's all you really need to do for the Masters. Typically, kind of just make the cut, hang around 1 or 2 under, and then if you can have a 5 under day, Saturday or Sunday, you're going to be right there in the heat of it.
Right.
And all these guys put themselves in relatively good position. I saw Jason Day. He finished his round yesterday, and he walked in the clubhouse, and the first thing he said was good God, Spieth, 8 under, I played an awesome day, and I got to come in and see that I'm 3 strokes back. I'm pretty sure that's probably how the majority of them felt yesterday. Hey, I had a good round. I walked in here well, I thought I had a good round.
He just dominated.
Yeah.
But you touched on this, Chase, and I just looked this up just now on my computer just to, clarify what you said to me the other day. But we shouldn't be so surprised. I remember you told me about this, about what Spieth is doing, because I'm looking on last year when Bubba won.
Finished second.
He finished second, tied for second. So Ricky Fowler, some of those guys tied for 5th. Jimmy Walker tied for 8th. But I totally understand what you're saying. He's playing well. When I listened to his interview, like he said, he'd been waiting all year for this. He prepared his body. And I think that's one of the, And I wanted to talk about this with you, Chase, because I touched on this on Wednesday, and I know you have really great commentary on this subject. What do you feel about Tiger Woods? And I'm just asking you this because I know that we came up when Tiger was the most prominent, the most powerful. Late '90s. That's what our generation saw. But I was able to identify back then. It's also with my granddaddy being a really really big golfer. Shout out to you, George Senior. But my granddaddy always told me that Tiger's game wouldn't last because he plays so hard. And it almost not like he doesn't respect his body, but sometimes when there's situations where he could play it and make it a little bit more mental, a little bit more finesse, he tries to strong arm it out. So do you feel I saw the other day Jack Nicklaus hit a hole in run on one of the kind of practices he was doing on the course. Do you see Tiger winning that late in age like Jack, or do you think that this is just, it's over? It's time for him to be a family man or whatever, what have you?
I really thought after the whole golf club through the back of the car incident with the wife and everything kind of fell out for him that he would rebound. I never thought it'd be as quick as some people. People are like, oh, he's gonna rebound. I'm like, it might take him a couple years.
Right, of
he's
course.
Gonna have to get all this off. It's the story. Once it becomes the next story, it's not quite like football and basketball where you can have like let's say like a Josh Gordon story. You get caught. It's the biggest story of the day. A month later, we're talking about Ray Rice.
Right.
Golf, it's Tiger Woods. You're the only story. He needed some time for him to be the only story to kind of wash away,
right,
readjust his game. Then injuries started happening, and I always kind of felt like he would get back. He would have to adjust his game, but he would get back to a competitive form. And we saw that 2 years ago. He showed up at the Masters. He was in like the top 5 or 10.
Mm-hmm.
He was making a run, and I was like, all right, he didn't win this one, but Tiger's close. And then he started getting hurt. And the last 6 months or so, I've just kind of been like on the mind process of I don't know. Maybe Tiger is done.
Right.
Maybe he's not going to get back. He fired his swing coach. I was like, we might just be stuck in a perpetual loop now where I'm trying to figure this out. I don't think it's so much mental anymore now. I think we're at the point where you said he pushes his body a little too much, and it's physical for him.
Well, and I talked about on Wednesday, and I'll see what you think about this. I feel like sometimes, I guess just for this most recent time, and Tiger said that he was going to take some time off. But then sometimes, Chase, I feel like he says that, and I don't know who gets in his ear. And we've talked about that on this show. Me and you've talked about that, multiple occasions. That's where it gets political. We don't always know what goes on behind closed doors. But I talked about this on Wednesday. Sometimes it seems like he's not quite ready to go back, and he knows physically he's not ready. But somebody's pressuring him to come back.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's PGA saying? Excuse me. We need the attendance. We need the revenue. Do you think?
I don't know if the PGA has anything to do with it. It probably has a lot to do with just its competitive nature. He probably wants himself to get out there.
Right.
And he probably battles with, am I ready? I feel like I'm getting ready. I watched a Paul George interview last night, and he's thinking about coming back.
I wanted to touch on that too.
And we can get to that in a minute. But you battle between, am I ready? Mentally and physically. I'm as an athlete, you're always ready. I think mentally, just about, varying circumstances excluded, but you're always ready mentally. Are you physically ready?
Right.
And once you start to kind of feel better after rehab, there's a huge difference between 90, 95%, and 100%.
Right.
And if you're Tiger, I like to talk about Derrick Rose a lot as my example. Derrick Rose, outstanding athlete. The things that Derrick Rose can do, other people can't do. Now, when you start messing up your knees are different from everyone else's knees.
Right.
You're special. You're Derrick Rose. Other people have the same kind of knees that you do, but you can move ways that other people can't. That's what makes you special. So you get hurt, you tear your ACL, you come back. You're expecting your knees to do what they did before. It's not always the case.
Right.
King Griffey, Derrick Rose. Is Tiger Woods one of these guys where his back's not going to hold up to the way that he's used to it? And when do you know if it's back to that position, or if you have to adjust your game? And if you have to adjust your game, can you do it and still be competitive at the rate you were? I think we have a lot of examples like Ken Griffey Jr. and Derrick Rose where these guys come back and they're competitive, but they're not elite. And I think Tiger's kind of stuck in that rut right now.
So do you feel? How do you feel about him shooting 73? The quote from him says that today was a good day. Is that really kind of like the best that you could really expect from him? Because that's kind of how I felt about it, Chase. I felt like, he was 9 strokes back from Spieth, who shot a 64. I was happy with that. I'm not. I guess you and I were in the same kind of place with it. I think the older generation, or older golfers, whatever, what have you, I think they are the ones that putting this harsh pressure on Tiger, and I don't think they're thinking deeply into his game and his body and his progression and things like that. But I know we are, and I think that's why you see the contrast where some people are like, Tiger's done, and then some people are like, this was expected. You had that strong swing, from 90s, 2000s, but I think, where it's not different between, Derrick Rose and even Derrick Rose, he has his MVP. People cannot take anything away from Tiger. You can't take anything away from what he did in the 10-year, decade run or whatever, what have you, that he had starting out young. I'd love to see him get up there with Jack. But, I've watched those videos of Jack Nicklaus and him winning, the Masters and winning different tournaments at an older age. And you can see where he changed his game,
Yeah.
So, I completely understand what you're saying. I don't know if Tiger's in a position to change his game, but what you feeling next? What you got on next board, Chase?
You just mentioned Derrick Rose winning MVP. Just little snippet. I heard I was listening to the video the other day, and they said Derrick Rose was the only MVP winner in the last 10 or 15 years to not have a national championship, or not an NBA championship. If you had, do you think Derrick Rose is a Hall of Fame player? All those guys that win MVPs are all going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Is Derrick Rose one of them? Because I don't think he is right now.
I don't think he is either, Chase. It almost hurts. I feel like I'm dissing him by not, admitting him in, but at the same time, I haven't seen enough. That's kind of like when sometimes where I've heard people say where, Grant Hill deserves to be in the Hall of Fame in the NBA. And I think back and I think to myself, off of what?
Yeah.
It's, I don't know. You can't really make comments like that without sounding demeaning or negative, but, I don't think so. As of right now, I don't think so. But, and I feel like we're going to get on the NBA, train right now. What are the differences that you've seen between Paul George and Derrick Rose? Because to me, Chase, you haven't seen a lot of Paul George. You haven't seen a lot of interviews. You haven't seen the comeback commercials. It's been really different. It's been really different. But as I've watched him come back, his game doesn't look any different to me. But when I study Derrick Rose, he's jumping different, Chase. He's not jumping the same way. He doesn't shoot the same way. It seems like he's purposely not really putting air under his jump shot and different things, his dribble drive, whatever, what have you, because he's thinking about something. Now, when I watched Paul George play the Heat the other night when he came back, I didn't see that. I didn't see that from him. I saw him smiling. The only thing that was different that he wore a headband.
Yeah.
And everybody was joking saying that he took LeBron's headband, but what do you feel about that? Do you?
I'm gonna say something, and I love Paul George, awesome player. I was trying to compare Rose in the fact that Rose is elite. I don't know if Paul George is elite. There's a tier there where certain people are athletically elite.
Right.
So Derrick Rose losing his knees and tearing his ACL, I'm not sure that if that affects him majorly. That changes his game. It changes his body. Paul George's injury it's really gruesome to watch, and it's hard to watch.
Yeah.
I'm sure rehab was incredibly difficult, but I don't think it's, not to say anything light of Paul George, I don't think it's as difficult for him to recover, come back, and play his game.
Right.
Because his game really didn't require doing anything extraordinary.
Right.
He's just a sound guy. He's
Right.
going to get his rebounds. He's going to get his points. He plays a nice fundamental game. A lot of it below and above the rim. he doesn't have the way Derrick Rose moves and the way that he uses his body.
Maneuvers through the lane. Yeah,
He
I
needs
totally
his
see what
body
you're saying.
to work in a different method than everyone else.
Right.
Paul George doesn't necessarily need that. Guys like LeBron James and Paul George and bigger, more sound core fundamentally guys.
It's not going to hurt them the same.
Yeah, they can get hurt. Even like LeBron. If LeBron tore his ACL, he'd probably be fine. He'd come back. He probably doesn't want to tear his ACL right now. He's getting a little older. Yeah, knock on wood. He'd kill. Cleveland might shut down. That whole city might just
Yeah, they wouldn't have any
collapse.
type of sporting events for the rest of the season.
Indians might be good this year.
Yeah.
But regardless, no, I don't think it's going to affect him the same way it affects Rose. I think George will be fine. The only thing I worry is he ready? It hasn't quite been a year.
Do you think it was also predicated off the fact that the Pacers are sitting, I think, in like 10th in the East? Do you think they were like, Paul, come back and we'll try to
push.
Yeah, we'll try to make a playoff push. Do you think that went along into it as well? Because I think
it definitely did.
People will never say that it went into it, but yeah. I think you can tell.
Yeah, I think if the Pacers are dead last, they're like, you take your time.
Right.
We'll see you next year. I think anyone who thinks that them not being in potential playoff hunt, that has a factor into it, is just looking the other way.
Right.
They're turning a blind eye. That's definitely a factor. If you're a general manager and a coach and you're dead last and you have no chance of making the playoff and your star player's been hurt, but he's doing really well in rehab, do you bring him back for a week or two? I don't think you do. Now, if you're sitting on a cusp and your player's looking better and he's looking healthy and he looks like he's ready to play and you can make a push, yeah, I want him back.
Right.
I think that definitely is a factor. I think it's naive to think it's not.
Whether
it pans out for him, I don't know.
Right. I was going to say, you can look at it and see. I mean, Derrick Rose played like 9 minutes, 10 minutes. He's playing a little bit here and there. Paul George played
been there all year.
Yeah, so I definitely see what you're saying. Let me jump on some different topics and throw some different things at you really quickly, Chase, see what you think.
Sounds good.
Steph Curry, 6th NBA season. He broke his own record, Chase.
Give that kid an MVP.
Most three-point field goals in a single season, 276 now, broke his own record from 2012-2013 with 272. The rest of that list, 05-06, Ray Allen, 269. Dennis Scott, 95-96, 267. And then Curry again, 2013-2014, 261. Is he the MVP clearly, Chase?
Yeah, give it to him. I said a couple weeks ago that I think LeBron's the MVP, and I think LeBron should always be the MVP just because LeBron is LeBron.
Yeah, and I didn't even know he's still third in the NBA in scoring. I didn't know that. I thought he had bumped down to maybe 5 or 6 because he was there. Right.
Yeah, give it to Steph Curry. Steph Curry's the MVP. If Steph Curry doesn't win the MVP, I'm going to find every single writer that votes for the MVP voting, and I'm going to write them some lovely letters.
I think, especially with, James Harden hitting, I think he has the highest amount of 40-point games. Russell Westbrook with the triple doubles. People don't want to give it to Curry for some reason. Why is that? Why do you feel like that is, Chase? Because that's something that's been lingering on my mind for some time now. It seems like he's, Steve Kerr is not like putting him out there like, for the Rockets, they have commercials and they play, different skits during the games about why James Harden should win MVP. What do you think about that?
I think every market wants their player to win MVP. And I think when the general discussion comes up about awards in any sport, there's always kind of like an obvious answer. And then everyone kind of wants to be the person who's like, wait, don't forget about this guy. This guy's playing really well too.
Right.
I think the unanimous decision is Steph Curry is the MVP, but it's boring for conversation. It's boring for radio. It's boring for TV.
Right.
It's not very exciting to listen to, really. You want to kind of stir up some kind of conversation.
Right.
So Steph Curry being the MVP, I think it's the right decision. But people want to hear like James Harden. Throw James Harden in there. Let's throw Russell Westbrook in there. Well,
right.
Isn't LeBron a shot? Give all these guys an opportunity to kind of create conversation. But I think at the end of the day, Stephen Curry's your MVP.
Yeah, I feel the same. Excuse me. Let me ask you this, Chase, because this is I mean, not the biggest story, but I read about Mark Cuban and his comment saying that how the college game is just terrible. Before we touch on the draft picks and who's coming out, I want to ask you about that because as crazy as this sounds, I kind of feel and understand where Mark Cuban is coming from. But what do you think about that? I mean, do you think that it's just a generational difference and the players, excuse me, are just different? Because to me, it seems like it's more so about athleticism than skill now. I mean, what do you feel about his comments on that? I mean, do you think that he was right to say what he did, or it's kind of far fetched? What do you think?
I like Mark Cuban. Brilliant, brilliant guy. And he's entitled to his opinion. The college basketball game is horrible.
Right.
I'm not sure. I mean, I need a little more detail from him. Same thing with UConn's head coach. Everyone's kind of dissing on college basketball right now, saying the game is horrible. I don't completely disagree. I think the athletes are just as good as they were a decade ago, if not better. I think the problem is maybe the foundation of the game. There's too many timeouts. The coaches micromanage the games. They slow it down. Whether playing at a slow pace or a fast pace is exciting or better for the game is debatable. But I think we definitely need to decrease the timeouts and kind of get the coaches out of the game. People are complaining about the last 2 minutes of the game in college basketball are really, really slow. That's how the NBA used to be.
Yeah,
it used to be
true.
the same way.
That is true.
We reduced the timeouts.
When the game was more physical. Yeah, you're right. You're right about that, Chase.
We reduced the timeouts. We kind of increase these influences to speed up the pace of the game and give the players a little more freedom.
Right.
It's not exciting watching the last 2 minutes of a game and your team gets the ball, timeout, let me drop a play, go down, doesn't work, oh, timeout for us, we're going to drop a play. It's really boring to watch.
And that's why I understood, I guess for me, I understood what Mark Cuban was saying because I kind of translated what he was saying into what we talked about with the refereeing. That needs to be corrected. You know, that needs to be corrected because I was tired this season of watching games and it seems like 5 minutes into the first half, somebody's already in the double bonus.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Now, I do think they need to, you know, kind of and I touched on this on Wednesday. I want to ask you about it as well. Do you think that the NCAA needs to adapt some of the rules from the NBA?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the NBA, I think college, I think the NCAA needs to almost adapt everything from the NBA almost. You don't have to extend the three-point arc. You can keep some of the foundations of the game the same. I think reducing timeouts, getting the coaches a little more out of the game and giving the players more freedom. That's your job as a college coach.
Right.
You wanna build these guys up as men academically and for reality, but as far as on the court, like teach them in practice how to play and then let them go in the game.
This is the quote right here, Chase. I want to see what you think. It's horrible. It's ridiculous, Cuban said. It's worse than high school. You've got 20 to 25 seconds of passing on the perimeter, and then somebody goes and tries to make a play and do something stupid, and scoring's gone down. What do you think about that?
Have you seen Rajon Rondo? That guy is horrible in Dallas' system.
He is.
If that's your system, did anybody watch? Did Mark Cuban watch the Kentucky-Wisconsin game and go, "Wow, this is really boring"?
Yeah, I don't know.
Did he watch the Duke-Wisconsin game and was like, "This is miserable"?
Right.
I thought it was pretty good basketball.
Me too.
Kaminsky, Decker, Winslow, Okafor. Regardless of Okafor and Winslow, we didn't see as much because they got in foul trouble early.
Right.
But those were exciting games. I mean, those were the Final Four games were exciting games. Duke kind of ran away from Michigan State. But from about the Sweet 16 on, I thought we had pretty good basketball. If you want to talk about college basketball being horrible, the exciting days for everyone are the first 2 days where you get all the upsets. That's what's boring for me because those games are just miserable.
Right.
Hampton versus Kentucky, those games aren't exciting to watch.
Right. And I think for those games, it's also more predicated on the fact that Hampton, these teams getting there. And I think sometimes that's what gets lost in translation. It's almost like, even back when I went to Charleston Southern University and our first game was against Florida, and I remember everybody being so ecstatic about playing there, but also because we were getting paid for it. You know what I mean? We're getting paid to lose. So it's I think it's the recognition and it's getting there, and but on that aspect, I guess just to take it to the next step, I wanted to ask you this as well because I think in Mark Cuban and his he has a long quote, but I just breaking down some pieces, and he talks about the one and dones. What do you truly feel about the one and dones, Chase? I know we've talked about the individual players. We talked about the Okafors and the Karl Anthony Towns and, even way back with LeBron and, Kevin Garnett and Amari Stoudemire. I mean, there's just so many players. What do you honestly and truly feel about that, Chase? Do you feel like it needs to be an opportunity where these guys, if they're ready out of high school, can go straight to high school because you're kind of tired of seeing the 1 year in college, or because a lot of people are being really hard on Okafor right now, but at the same time, I feel like what else is there to do?
Yeah.
You've won the championship, and people are talking about Titus Jones. And I think what people fail to realize sometimes is that you are dealing with 17 and 18-year-old and 19-year-old kids here. You get what I'm saying? So
exactly. If
you have Okafor and Winslow leaving and you're Titus Jones, are you going to come back and be like, well, I'm the guy that won the MVP, but I'm coming back? No, you're going to take it to the next level. I mean, what do you feel about that?
I'm not really sure what we have. I know what we have one and dones. I don't know what we have the 1 year system. I wish that college basketball would either adopt the NBA system of you have to play for 2 years, or adopt the baseball system where you don't have to play at all.
Right.
Now,
I heard that 2-year system was coming. I heard that they're leaning more towards that than the baseball rule, but that's just kind of up in the air right now.
Yeah, I don't think there are a lot of kids that are ready for the NBA out of high school. I think you draft those kids. LeBron was probably the first kid that we've ever seen this decade of my generation that was ready.
He was ready.
The rest of these guys that come out of high school, they play, but they're not really. LeBron was a star the first year. His rookie season, he was a star. These are the guys that have come out of high school, even like Kobe Bryant. So they come out of high school. Kobe wasn't that effective his first couple years. Like, he still had to grow.
You're right.
So I'm not even sure that all these guys that always come out one and done's like Okafor, like they're exactly ready. But if you're looking at it from his standpoint, why else would I stay at Duke if I don't have to?
Right.
So either let these kids come out of high school, or if you think they need to stay, make them stay 2 years. Because I don't really like the one and done system from a college academic standpoint.
Right.
I have a kid come in, he's just got to pass for a semester, and if he's Okafor, his classes don't even matter the second semester. If he knows he's going to play well, get drafted, and leave.
Right.
Make these kids stay a whole year, commit academically, and keep them for 2 years. Now the problem there is you run into things like Syracuse and North Carolina.
Right.
And what happens academically with keeping these kids eligible? That's always an issue. I don't like the 1 year thing. I think it's just an iffy window. Either don't have it at all or make it 2 years.
Right.
But as far as one and dones, I don't have a problem with it. Personally, if you're good enough to go to the NBA, whenever you're ready and whenever you're eligible, go.
Well, and you heard, what, and I guess I'm gonna get into who's coming out, but Coach Calipari, and I watched the entire news conference because I was really intrigued. I wanted to see what was going to be said, and he said that with each individual player, he sits down with them. They call about 32 different NBA personnel wherever they come from, and they talk to their families and things like that. Karl Anthony Towns, Willie Cauley-Stein, Devin Booker. I mean, when I look at this, I'm not upset, Chase. It's just been revealed that Sam Dekker is coming out as well. Jahlil Okafor has already declared. He declared yesterday. Honestly, and I want to get, what you think about, I guess, who's the best coming out, who do you think is worth drafting. But for me, Chase, I didn't see enough from the Harrison twins. I feel like they came back this year, and I feel like they did not get better to me. And I feel like that is one of the reasons why, they came close to losing to LSU and the Georgias, and even losing to Wisconsin, because I don't think they came to play. I just don't. But to me, I didn't see anything from Dakari Johnson. I didn't really see a lot from Devin Booker or Trey Lyles. But when I looked on the projected picks for next year, I see Andy Katz has 7th overall pick and 8th and 9th, and I don't know, Chase. I mean, what do you think about that?
The good thing for the Harrison twins and guys like Lyles and Booker is that this draft is really shallow.
Yeah,
as far as a talent pool.
It is.
I
think Lyles. Now I can say it, and I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize, but I think Trey Lyles is he's body ready.
Yeah.
He's 6'10", 235. I mean, I didn't see a lot from him, but I he can shoot. He's almost like a 3 guard. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's ready. But yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you about to say?
No, you're fine. I think you have your Karl Anthony Towns and your
Willie Cauley-Stein's a junior, right? He's a junior. He a junior? Okay.
And is Stein a junior? I'll have to look that up.
Sophomore or junior?
You still I still like Chris Dunn from Providence. These random kind of fluctuating kids.
Right.
The talent pool though this year is pretty shallow. So if you're gonna go, this is a good year. Even for guys like Dekker, I don't know if Dekker would have been a good selection last year, even next year.
Right.
But this is a good year for Dekker to go.
Well, when I look at Andy Katz and who he has, I mean, his top 10 is just it's surrounded by freshmen. It's surrounded by freshmen. I mean, I even looked, and when I saw that, Tyler Ulis and Marcus Lee were contemplating going as well, I was like, I have not seen anything from these guys.
Yeah.
And this is a quote from Coach Calipari right here. If Alex Poitras doesn't get hurt, it would have been 8.
I don't know.
And they said he's still, Alex Porters is still contemplating putting himself in the draft, and I guess I wasn't thinking about it that way. So now I'm glad that you've said what you said, because now that I have understanding in my head that this is a weak draft class, I understand now why they wanted to come out. So I definitely understand you saying that.
Yeah, like even if you're looking at the number 1 overall pick and you're looking at maybe like Karl Anthony Towns, he still needs development.
Right.
There's not a solid
He
legitimate number
averaged
1 pick.
9.7 points, 6.7 rebounds, 2.4 blocks per game.
Yeah, guys like Okafor. If you bring in any of these guys, I don't think they like immediately take over your franchise.
Right.
You're not gonna come in, bring them into the Knicks, and be like, hey, we're a championship team now. Welcome our new LeBron James. There's none of those players in this draft.
But Derek Fisher just came out, Chase, and he said that as the New York Knicks, we can go from worst to first with this NBA pick. So are you saying that what he's saying is not, they shouldn't have the expectations that they can draft a Karl Anthony Towns or Okafor and quickly turn it around?
Yeah, no. As long as the Knicks have Carmelo Anthony, they're not gonna turn anything around.
Right.
That team's not going anywhere with him. Not championship-wise, that team can be a good team. Melo just kind of destroys franchises.
Sam Dekker is a junior, and what I'm reading here is that he really even decided to go because of how well he did
in the tournament. Yeah.
He averaged 19.1, made 15 to 36 shots from behind the arc in the tournament. Boosted his stock significantly. Who do you think is, if you had the number 1 overall pick, and I know it doesn't hold the same weight like it used to, when you draft the Jordans and things like that, but, Okafor joins Corey Maggette, Luol Deng, Kyrie Irving, Austin Rivers, and Jabari Parker. When I look at Austin Rivers' game now, I'm like, oh my God, that kid was not ready to go to the NBA.
Yeah.
Who are you taking first overall, though? You taking Okafor or Karl Anthony Towns?
I'd probably take Okafor. He seems a little more ready to me.
Yeah.
Towns is good. He's awesome. I don't know why every time I watch him, I just feel like he's not ready offensively.
Yeah.
His points are there, and he looks good when he's playing in games. For whatever reason, like my eye test when I watch him play is I'm like, he's not ready. And everyone's like, what are you talking about? He's like beasting guys down low. I'm like, he just doesn't look ready for whatever reason to me.
He has to get going. Sometimes I think, especially during the season, I think, I don't know if people notice or even noticed that others were noticing, but, he wasn't really getting talked about a lot. It was like the second half of the season where people were really like, put him over Okafor, things like that. But, I don't see any of these guys really just totally making not a statement, but, really jumping into the league. But, at the same time, I'm not saying that it's good for the 7 players to leave and things like that, but I'm ready to see the new wave of the league. I'm really anxious to see, the Russells and the Hardens and, the Anthony Davises, all of them. I'm really ready to see them take over. But I'm starting to realize, Chase, also, and we talked about this with the playoff push, I just don't see people wanting to play out west because of how hard it is. I think once this offseason comes, especially with, KD being an upcoming free agent, who do you see as, I guess, one of the teams that's bad now that could be good in the future? Lakers, Knicks, Nets.
I always want to say Charlotte, and every year I just get destroyed.
I love Charlotte, though.
I'm like, Charlotte's so close, man. They're like 1 or 2 players away from like turning it, and then it just doesn't happen.
I think they're 11.
I really thought Kemba Walker was going to transform that team, and I've been disappointed.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think if the Knicks get rid of Melo and they do a couple things right from an organizational standpoint, they could turn it pretty quick. From a realistic standpoint, it's probably the Lakers. Just because I'm convinced that Kevin Durant's going to end up there next year.
Yeah.
We were talking about that about a month ago. If all of a sudden that team is Durant and a lottery pick and like an Okafor,
got to give them credit, Chase.
It's a franchise, and they got money to go get somebody. Let's say the Cavaliers win this year, hypothetically, go poach a Kevin Love or something away from them. Durant, Love, Okafor, lottery pick, Kobe Bryant playing like 6 minutes a game with a half a leg. Like team will be pretty decent. The Lakers have the brand.
Right.
I think the Knicks have the brand too, but not
I think the only thing that'll really give the Knicks the edge is that they're in the East, and the East is so weak.
Yeah.
You know, I think that is the only. I don't think New York even makes them attractive. I think the East makes them attractive. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The brand of the Lakers is going to draw players. Remember a couple years ago when everyone was talking about the Clippers and how the Clippers are going to be the new team in LA. I think if you look at comparative like prices at like Lakers tickets and Clippers tickets like you probably can't. They're probably dying to sell them, and that team's competitive, and the Lakers are selling it every night, and that team's horrible.
Yeah, that is true, Chase.
So it's a lot of that's just your brand name. You're the Lakers. People want to come play for you.
Right.
Until someone like the Clippers can win a championship and take some of that brand away from them. I mean, I think that's the team that can quickly go from bottom to first because they're set up in a financial situation and an organizational situation to do so.
5 minutes left, Chase. Let me talk about this with you because I touched on this on Wednesday. You know the Spurs have won about 10 straight.
Popovich.
Who do you see? I mean, give me a little quick. I mean, I guess heading as the playoffs start to really come around. Speaking of the playoffs, shout out to Boston U. Winning their Frozen 4 game. Providence won as well. That was very surprising to me. I'm going to go with Boston because they win it every year. But do you still have faith in the Warriors? Because to me, Chase, the Spurs are clicking, man. When the Spurs are clicking, I don't want to choose anyone but them. Because to me, I know that the Warriors are a jump shooting team. I know they're a phenomenal jump shooting team, but I feel like Andrew Bogut and David Lee are going to be the liability for them in the playoffs because I feel like it's also about big men in the playoffs as well. But what are you thinking?
I still like the Warriors. Under the radar, they've been the best defensive team all year, and people were like
in a series,
Yeah, they're like they're a jump shooting team. They're a jump shooting team. Kind of gets swayed sometimes. It's cloudy. We're like it's a team that shoots a bunch of like Notre Dame was a jump shooting team playing Kentucky. This is a jump shooting team with Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson. And this team has guys on their bench that can start for the people. Andre Iguodala is not a bad player. David Lee comes off the bench sometimes.
Sean Livingston, Andrew Barbosa.
Draymond Green starts or comes off the bench depending on the day. This team is built, and they have the depth. I mean, they're the number one team in the NBA for a reason.
Right. Do you think so?
I think Spurs are number 2 right now, though.
This is the year for the Warriors to do something?
Yeah, I think a Warriors-Cavaliers final is probably what we're going to see. I mean, I hate the Spurs. They do this every year.
I know.
They rest their players, and then they come out in the postseason, and they just like you think they're going to run out of gas, and you think they're finally like the age is going to catch up.
And how do you feel about that, Chase? Do you feel like that is kind of a deploy from Coach Pop, or do you think that it's kind of like not really good for the game, resting their players? Because I've read a lot of comments where people, their fans, are get upset when they play certain teams towards kind of this time frame of the season.
Yeah.
They're going out there and they're watching, Marco Bellinelli have, the high of the game. You know what I mean?
I think their fans are typically pretty upset until this time of year, and they're like, "Ooh, with the Spurs, watch us do this again and again and again." Popovich is brilliant. He does this every year. He really doesn't get enough credit. He gets a lot of credit, and he still doesn't get enough credit.
Right.
I think a Spurs-Bulls matchup would be fun to watch. I think we'll end up seeing Spurs and Warriors. I don't have the NBA thing up in front of me for what the matchup looks like if it started today, so I'm not sure who's playing who.
But with D Rose coming back, do you see the Bulls or the Hawks really making any noise with Cleveland, or do you in a series you got to go Cleveland?
Yeah, I think the Hawks, even Cephalosha getting broken leg in that whole Chris Copeland incident.
Leg in New York.
That's a big loss for Atlanta. I didn't think Atlanta was going to beat Cleveland anyway, but that's a pretty big loss.
They're extremely cocky too. I've been reading a lot of reports from Atlanta, and they really see themselves going to the NBA Finals. So I'm just like, I think they can do it, but
you got to go through Cleveland.
Yeah, it's gonna have to go through Cleveland. And what makes Cleveland so scary to me is, and I talked about this, and we watched it live in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Even if LeBron's not bringing it, Kyrie can do whatever he wants to do, and you can't discredit that at all. So, anything else, Chase, you want to throw in there this last minute we got?
Not really. You touched on Lauren Hill at the beginning. Awesome, courageous story. Live out your life with what you want to do and follow your dreams.
Right.
Yeah, definitely throw prayers towards her family and try to live your life a little bit as courageously as she could. It's an incredible, inspirational story.
Exactly.
I'm trying to pull up the leaderboard for the Masters.
Oh, yeah. Pull that up real quick and give the people kind of the little update.
Spieth birdied again, so he's 4 under for the day through 11, so he's up by 5. Hoffman's in second. He's 2 under for the day. Rose tees off.
Spieth, you said Spieth was 12 under?
Yeah, he's 12 under.
Oh, okay.
I really think he might run away with this. We haven't seen it in about 2 decades almost. He might run away.
Hoffman's 5 away from him, yeah.
Yeah, Hoffman and Rose and Ernie Els and Jason Day.
He's dropped down a little bit.
Yeah, he's
Fifth.
fallen. Unless somebody else can find a way to shoot 7 under one day or 6 or 7 under, if Spieth keeps his pace, I don't see anybody else. Hoffman, I mean, he's playing well. Spieth might run away with this.
Spieth, Justin Rose. I don't see Nate coming behind me. I should have kept the show going. But yeah, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in today. I apologize heavily, for being under the weather. But thank you, Chase, for taking that lead and doing what you do. You're great at it. If everything goes correctly, folks, we'll be touchdowning and showcasing our talents with Greeny and Golick. Hopefully, man, it can get picked up. So say some prayers for us. Say some prayers for the show. We really want to take this to the next level, folks, and I feel like we can. We just need a little help from you all as well. So just continue to tune in, however you're tuning in, the TuneIn app, Coastal Carolina University app. If you're listening on your computer, we just appreciate you. I'm just to reiterate what Chase said. The Quidditch World Cup.
Quidditch World Cup's in Rock Hill tomorrow if anybody wants to go check that out.
And let me tell you, when I first transferred to Coastal, I participated in a little Quidditch, and it was actually fun. They actually have like a really cool like team and league here at Coastal. But we got the Relay for Life event is going on Coastal campus as well. So if you have any free time at all, if you have some younger loved ones that you'd like to bring out, definitely do that. It's a great event, great charity work that goes on down here as well. But anything else, Chase, you want to add or throw at the people before we go?
No, that's it. I'm going to end on Quidditch Cup.
That's it, folks. For Chase McFadden and Lord Helix, Addison Taylor, you were listening to Q&A on W.C.C.U Radio, Coastal Carolina University student radio station. Have a blessed day. Signing out.